Why airplane wine tastes different and what to order instead. If you've ever had a glass of wine on a plane and thought, did I accidentally order vinegar? You're not alone. Wine just doesn't taste the same in the air. And as someone who loves wine and flying, okay, maybe more the destination than the actual flight, I had to figure out why. Turns out there's science behind it and some really easy ways to make sure your next in-flight sip doesn't disappoint. Let's break it down. Your taste buds go numb at 35,000 feet. It's not that the wine is worse on a plane, well, sometimes it is, but that your sense of taste and smell dulls in the air. At cruising altitude, the cabin air is super dry and the pressure is lower than at sea level. This messes with your nose and tongue, muting your ability to detect aromas and subtle flavors. In fact, studies show your perception of sweet and salty drops by about 30% in flight. That amazing Cabernet you love at home, it might taste flat and overly acidic on a plane. Airlines actually adjust recipes, but not always enough. Some airlines, like Lufthansa, actually work with sommeliers to pick wines that hold up better in the air. They chose bolder reds, more aromatic whites, and wines with a little extra fruitiness or oak to fight the flavor loss. Others, well, they just throw mini bottles in the cart and call it a day. Moral of the story, if you're flying with an airline that takes wine seriously, you might get something decent. If not, lower your expectations or go in with a game plan. If you're curious about pairing food and wine in unusual places, check out my post about pairing wines with fresh herbs. You'd be amazed by how herbs can make or break a sip. What kinds of wine tastes best in flight? Here's where it gets fun. You can kind of hack the system. Generally speaking, fruit-forward wines hold up better. Full-body whites do well too, like Viognier or Chardonnay. Spicy, jammy reds work, like Malbec or Zinfandel. Light, delicate wines, Pinot Noir, Sauvignon Blanc, Rosé, get flattened out by the dry air. If you've got a choice, lean toward bold. And if you're BYOB, on airlines that allow it anyway, bring a small bottle of something sturdy. Sparkling wine, surprisingly good. Champagne, cava, prosecco, bubbly actually fares better at altitude. Why? The carbonation helps lift aromas towards your nose, compensating for the muted smell. Plus, the bubbles create texture, which your brain interprets as flavor. If all else fails, order the sparkling. Even cheap ones taste pretty decent in the sky. Why do airlines even bother serving wine? Honestly, it's more about tradition than flavor. Alcohol's been a standard part of air travel since the early days of luxury flying. And offering wine, even mediocre wine, still feels classy to passengers. It's also a moneymaker. On budget airlines, alcohol sales help pad the bottom line. But I'd argue they're missing an opportunity. With smart sourcing, airlines could offer better wines that actually taste good at altitudes and create a unique part of the flying experience. Maybe one day I'll pitch that idea. A sommelier design airline menu? Sign me up. Should you drink wine on planes? One quick PSA, alcohol hits harder at altitude. Not because you're more drunk, but because the low cabin pressure plus dehydration plus thinner air equals stronger effects. The FAA even warns about this. One glass might feel like two on the ground, so go easy, especially if you're flying long haul or planning to drive after you land. The future of airplane wine. Some airlines are experimenting with pressurized wine storage or altitude-adjusted blends to combat the taste loss problem, and more are offering curated selections for business and first class. But for us back in coach, probably mini bottles forever, unless demand changes. Personally, I'd love to see a world where passengers can pre-select wine when booking or opt into wine flights like a restaurant tasting menu. Until then, I'll stick with a bold Malbec, a glass of bubbly, or honestly, water if it's a short flight. Sparkling water is best, and my personal choice. What's the weirdest wine you've had at 30,000 feet? Have you ever had surprisingly good or awful wine on a plane? Tell me about it. I love hearing flying stories, especially the chaotic ones. In the meantime, next time you're scanning that drink card, you know what to reach for and what to skip. This post originally appeared on my blog at michelegargiulo.com, where I write about the curious, the poetic, and everything in between.